situation with NBC. It seems to me that so many of our corporate media entities out there are interested in fomenting racial rage as opposed to actually depicting the true story about these different events that happen that certainly are concerning, but are not depictions of race-based violence on the part of the cops against various people in America. Molly, what are your thoughts on this?
So much of the privilege that media figures have had has been built on this idea that they take and synthesize information and they provide context and help provide a shared set of facts for the American people. That's not what they're doing anymore. They have moved into straight up propaganda. In this case, it does seem that they are desiring to foment racial division because that aligns with the political goals of their favored party on the left. But they do it in so many ways. I think people need to stop being surprised when they see it happening because it happens with everything, whether it's the Russia collusion hoax or the Kavanaugh hoax or the Covington hoax or deceptively editing Governor Ron DeSantis's answer on vaccine distribution. It's just what they do as a matter of course. And this week we've seen it that they will even do it when it's something as fraught as racial division.
Joe, I think that this is a situation that unfortunately doesn't seem like it has any real solution. Is there a way to get these media entities to start behaving more responsibly and not, trying to push this toxic, racist approach to every frame of every story?
Then they got to be called out, but they got to be called out by their own. I want to see the op-eds in the New York Times, in the Washington Post, by CNN, people they don't expect to criticize them, NBC in this case, because that's the only way you're really going to get their attention. You mentioned about how the media is serving to divide the country further. Oh yeah, Gallup had a poll last year. 83% of Americans believe that the media bears the blame for division in this country. Think about that for a second. In 1976, media had a 72% approval rating in the Cronkite era. So today, NBC had to put out a statement to apologize for not issuing that full 911 call, because that's the real context when you hear a girl pleading, she's trying to stab us, or when they actually edited out the knife in the hand of the attacker in the original report. We should have seen apologies. We should have seen retractions. We saw nothing. All we saw was punditry on places like MSNBC, which seemed to actually justify knife fights going on between kids. This was a one-way knife fight, A. And B, there was actually a 13-year-old girl in Cincinnati that was stabbed to death by another 13-year-old. This isn't playtime now, and this is a very serious situation that we have here in terms of police and race, and tensions are high. NBC had to get it right. They got it wrong. And to Molly's point, they didn't get it wrong because they made a mistake. They got it wrong because they were trying to push a narrative, a dangerous one that could end up getting people killed.
You mentioned that commentary on CNN and MSNBC. Let's run that and get some reaction.
What if it were your daughter? What if it were your child? What if it were a member of your family, your neighbor, in essentially a teenage fight, a schoolyard fight?
I remember fights in even high school or even younger than that, where a kid brought a penknife or something to school and teachers were able to defuse that and they didn't have guns.
Molly, I listened to this and it seems so deeply unserious, but also it's gaslighting. It's true.
Yet another rush to judgment over a deadly police shooting. This is a tragedy. There's no denying that. But Democrats in the media racing to politicize an officer-killing 16-year-old Michaela Bryant, who had a knife in her hand and was lunging at another girl. Instead of waiting for all the facts, the White House said this.
She was a child. We're thinking of her friends and family and the communities that are hurting and grieving her loss. We know that police violence disproportionately impacts Black and Latino people in communities, and that Black women and girls, like Black men and boys, experience higher rates of police violence.
And now liberals in the media are trying to downplay the dangers of knife fights. Former Obama White House advisor Valerie Jarrett tweeting, quote, "A police officer immediately decided to shoot her multiple times in order to break up a knife fight." And a CNN guest said this. Yeah, Martha, one of the things that I found pretty disturbing was watching a lot of African-American pundits look at this video and basically come to the conclusion that we should just let them stab each other. Don't get involved. Don't try to break it up. Knife fights happen. Let's just let them slash each other to death.
It's become clearer that fairness is overrated. The idea that we should always give two sides equal weight and merit does not reflect the world we find ourselves in.
NBC now putting those words into practice, the network under fire for deceptively editing the 911 call that preceded a fatal police shooting of a teenage girl in Ohio. Police body cam video shows a Columbus officer shooting 16-year-old Makia Bryant as she was lunging with a knife at another woman. But the part of the 911 call that NBC aired left out the part about the attempted stabbing.
Officer Nicholas Reardon, who joined the force in December of 2019, was responding to a 911 call.
We need a police officer here now.
And here's the actual 911 call.
These grown girls over here trying to fight us, trying to stab us, trying to put her hands on our grandma. Get here now.
Have you seen any weapons? Have you seen any weapons?
We need a police officer here now.
Joining me now, Molly Hemingway, senior editor at The Federalist, and Joe Concha, the Hill media opinion columnist. Both are Fox News contributors. Joe and Molly, thanks so much for
reduce the number of 911 calls coming from these communities. You're going to reduce the chances of these horrific, very messy, officer-involved shootings. Isn't that right?
Right, and people will die if the police are not there for them. You can look at that video one of two ways. That was a police officer saving the life of a young black woman. And you know what? When the police aren't there, people die. In another part of Ohio earlier this week in Cincinnati, a 13-year-old was stabbed to death by another 13-year-old. The girl who died, Naira Givens, she was stabbed by another who's been charged with murder. I'll leave it at that. But what's happened with the left-wing liberal framing of all of this, and this is their modus operandi, that you get ahead of the actual facts and that you or ignore them or lie to make sure that you shape the story to their narrative at all costs. So the narrative is cops are evil, this country is racist, down with America, and then the preferred outcome is that we destroy the nation as it exists right now to rebuild it. It's a craven power grab. Ridiculous if it wasn't so insidious. But I'll point to the verdict in the Derek Chauvin trial, guilty on all counts, justice for George Floyd's family.
She came out with a knife earlier?
No, that's what the police did.
That lady on the floor?
She came after me.
With a knife?
Yeah, so he got her.
All right, well, first of all, it's not a knife fight when only one person has a knife. That's a butcher shop. All right, so Juan Williams, you're an officer. You get out of the vehicle, you see mayhem. There's a guy that's kicking a girl down to the ground, and another woman lunging at a defenseless woman like this with a sharp blade. You have seconds to react. She doesn't put the knife down when you warn her. What does Officer Juan Williams do to save the lady's life in pink?
Well, I guess I would shoot the gun, not necessarily at somebody, but maybe shoot the gun and maybe, run at the person and try to disarm them. I don't know.
The guy is foolish.
So wait. You would shoot the gun in the air like a warning shot?
Hopefully to distract or to try to stall or something so I could or my partner could get the knife away, I see is what I was saying. Well, I don't know.
And NBC actually got caught deceptively editing the video to make it look like the girl didn't have a knife, and they edited the 911 call. Again, we're back to cleaning up another racially charged story that has been foisted upon us in order to divide us.
The only time the media is interested in looking at the complexities of this stuff is when they are caught out on it. Right? No one changed the subject. No one changed the subject. The media embraced this story and they pushed it to the forefront because they thought it was going a certain way. And then suddenly when it went another way, people started deleting their tweets, right? But the real and the fact is, Juan says these stories are messy. We've been saying that every time we have 8 or 10 of these a year, we go, each one of these cases is so different, but it's the media that is trying to make them sound exactly the same, and it's not. It is messy. But here's the real outrage. We have lowered our expectations so much that we deem a knife fight as an acceptable part of childhood. If that is true, right, we need to examine these childhoods instead of making disgusting excuses. We saw two narratives collide last night. Police shooting a suspect, which the media obsesses over, black-on-black violence, which the media ignores. But you can't have the former without the latter. Police end up at the end of these people's lives because they were called there due to the violence that the media ignores. Cops end up in situations caused by the problems that are dismissed. So they end up there because it's their job to be there at the end. And no, it's not Juan or me that has to rush in and not make this decision. It's that guy. He can't ignore it. He has to show up and risk everything too. Imagine if we honestly tackled the problems at its roots, the piss poor education, the violence, mental wellness, family structure. What if we examined the variables that end up with the police there at the end of a person's life, rather than dismissing it as a harmless knife fight? Or what Jen Psaki said, those are the variables that contribute to this. Because the more you dismiss the variables that lead to this horrible tragedy, the more it keeps coming. This is not about a police officer. This is about everything that led to that moment. And if you deny that, you are propagating this problem. You are part of the problem.
Okay, people, guys, so you see the evidence right there. The media, they lied. They were quick to rush out and put out a different story, inaccurate story. And what they do is that they look to see who can get the story out first without even looking at the facts, because once you start the avalanche, you can't stop it. Once you trigger people's emotions, you can't stop it. No matter you apologize or whatever, the damage is already done. And that's what the media has been doing. And it is amazing how, I did that video the other day, and within 24 hours, I was able to find those clips and show exactly the very point that I was expressing. And those black people that are in Congress or whatever that are on CNN, and the women that's talking about we had knife fights when we was in high school, like it was just acceptable. Well, I guarantee those knife fights did not take place in front of a police officer within the community. When people do things at school, you can intervene because you get wind of it, before it even happens, because teenagers talk at school. That's how they were able to, intervene and stop people from opening fire in classrooms or whatever, because the teenagers would tell such and such got a gun in their locker. So that don't mean that it was acceptable at all. But in the community, when you have a police officer show up and the people just deliberately start fighting right in front of a police officer and almost about to take somebody else's life, that's a completely different story. It's not a knife fight when only one person has the weapon in their hand. It's a fist fight because two people have their fists and they're swinging and they're hitting each other. It's a gunfight because both parties have guns. But when the person has a gun or a weapon that can destroy somebody and take their life, that's not a fight. That's called an advantage. That's called murder. That's called assault. So the one thing I want to point out too is that people, this is about money. This is about viewerships and money. This is not about that they care about the other person. That you never hear none of these other people say that officer saved that black person's life. You don't see these black congressmen and these liberals saying anything about the other black girl, about her life being spared and saved. They don't care because they want to push a narrative, and that's what happens is that, the devil is a liar. He's been a liar from the beginning. Jesus Christ said that. And his aim is to steal, kill, and destroy. So when they put out false narratives, it is to get people into riotous, behavior
to express that spirit of wrath, so they can start destroying stuff, because they're following the signals of their father, the devil. That's how the Antichrist spirit is going to work, to cause people small and great to take the mark of the beast, because to trigger their emotions, to make it seem like they're going to benefit from this. It can solve all their problems and all this stuff, the things goes on, but it's a complete setup, and people are just falling for it, hook, line, and sinker. They're just going for it. They're going for it off emotion. Then all of a sudden you got the show called The View, which I call Jezebel's View. And what these talk shows do is they get these women on there, or they get these, men on there that have no backbone, and they make these somber appearances where their faces look so sorrowful, they look so sad, while they sit up there and when they get their $1 million contract to renew their spot on that television show, they move right out to those gated communities. They move right out to those suburbs where you won't see blackface within miles. Within unless you cross the county line or whatever. So anyway, that's what they do, and then they get on there and act like they really and truly care, but they don't. They do that for ratings. They do that because they want more viewership, because more viewership gets them bigger contracts, money in their pocket. Now, I'm not against somebody who does well for their life and they move out in gated communities, because I would do the same thing. I don't want to live in the hood. I don't want to live in on MLK Street. Every city got an MLK Street, because that's where everything goes down at. But I don't want to live there. I want my family living there. If I, make it that way, then I'm moving out there too. So I'm not knocking them for that. But what I'm saying is that don't try to sit up and act like you care when all this other stuff is going on and you turn a blind eye to it. And that's why they brought up the situation that happened in Cincinnati when a knife fight took place and a 13-year-old girl was stabbed. That's terrible. I hated hearing that. And to hear the story of the father saying that he had to hold his daughter in his arms while she bled to death. So that's sad. That's terrible. And as a father, there's just something that's just unimaginable. And I feel for them. But these media outlets, you see what they're doing. They're playing you. They are playing you. And people that are walking around with unforgiveness, looking for the signal, looking for the opportunity to express their rage, they don't even care. They don't care about the facts. They don't care about none of it. LeBron James, all of them, you see what he did with his tweets, and then he takes it down and stuff, because he basically said, "You're next" to the police officer, which is a threat. I know he was trying to make it like he was talking, the same thing that happened to the George Floyd police officer. He was trying to make that reference, like you going to the justice system next. You're going to get dealt with next. And all the people that want to talk about how the system is unjust, where you just had justice done on this officer. So now that narrative has been completely crushed. So I just wanted to do a quick follow-up on those videos. Play it again. This time Fox News got it right. Especially, I completely applaud that last man that they said, what are the variables? Let's look at the variables that's leading up to this. The broken families. And then now you got the mother of the teenager that was shot by the police officers, and saying that, she was a good girl. Of course, they're going to show all the TikTok videos and everything. But yet, she possibly wasn't even in the girl's life. She was in foster care. So again, the breakdown of the family, and where's the father at? You see this over and over again. And I said it before, I'll say it again. What these videos are showing is exactly the terrible conditions that's happening in predominantly black communities and urban cities, and of course amongst African Americans. Broken home structure, lack of morals, and many have no regards. And I'm black, so I'm only talking about the ones I'm talking about. Have no regards for authority, which leads to their own demise. So we see it on camera. The police officers are responding to issues going on in the black community, and it's showing what is happening the breakdown of the family, the destruction of the community because of the breakdown of the family, and because of the breakdown of the family, poor quality in education, and the list goes on, but it starts in the home. So that's what we're seeing happening. That's what I wanted to share to let you see that, you know, it wasn't even 24 hours and I saw those video clips and like, oh my goodness, this just kind of reiterates exactly what was expressed, what other people tried to express, that these media outlets don't care about what's going on. They only care about their viewership. They only care about money because they're following after the pattern of their father, the devil, who is the prince of the power of the air. And the narrative that he leads them to put out to deceive the masses is what's creating and causing all of this racial division and race war agenda to come to pass. But it's the unbelievers that are spearheading it. And unfortunately, like I said before in the previous videos, you got people that claim Christ that are feeding off of that leaven as well. They're feeding off that leaven themselves because they're out here reacting to it. They're out here talking about this is the reason why they created Black Lives Matter, because of situations like this, while somebody is getting gunned down and cut down by their own race. No, the reason why they created Black Lives Matter was to profit off of black people. And that's exactly what has happened. Founders bought 4 multi-million-dollar homes, and you know, and so people they just turn a blind eye to it. That's what's happening. They turn the blind eye to the elephant in the room because they got a narrative to put across. And unfortunately, people are falling for that antichrist narrative. And I'm telling you, they're going to turn on the church and turn the masses against the church, as they have been doing so already. It's a slow process. It's a gradual process. It's all designed to get momentum. So when they pull that narrative out against the church, against the body of Christ, they've already blamed churches for the COVID numbers increases and everything else. When they pull that narrative out, those offended ones, those sons and daughters of Belial, the children of disobedience, whom the wrath of God will come upon, they're going to hear that signal and they're going to go after the church. It's going to continue to increase because of the lying news media. All right. I just found it very interesting that, you know, to see that fast after the video was posted the other day. And now to see that, and then you have a black news anchor, Lester Holt, that was also responsible for showing edited material to deceive people, and now they got to come back and apologize. You wouldn't have to come back and apologize if you had got your facts straight first. And that's because they don't care about the facts. They care about the narratives and viewerships and getting a reaction out of people so that they can get paid more. They can renew those contracts. Just want to share that with you. You see the evidence, it's right there, and it's going to continue. That's kind of stuff that continues to happen. But as long as they got an audience and people that's willing to fall for it and run to the streets and protest and tear everything up, then they'll keep doing it. They'll keep doing it because it equals a bigger salary, bigger viewership, bigger paycheck, while the people that are out there doing the foolish stuff, the lawless, riotous behavior, are out there getting arrested, are out there getting, put down, are out there just setting themselves up to bring destruction to their own household and their own family. And they're being used by the devil. I shared in the last video, the devil's playing people like a yo-yo. They think they're out there doing something for a good cause and just cause. Well, the anger of man does not ever produce the righteousness of God. It's the devil playing them like a yo-yo, getting them out there, pull them back till they hear the next signal, throw them out there again, pull them back till they hear the next signal, till they see the next shooting, throw it out there, pull it back again. It's the same old process. Just want to share that with you. God bless you, love you. In Jesus' name, amen.